Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Welcome back to the stream. Today I've got something kind of interesting planned. So I wanted to do a kind of a review of the contact instrument by Sonora Cinematic called Verticali. And they were kind enough to send me a copy of this contact library. I guess you call it a contact library. It's sort of, something that you're basically playing an instrument. And it's a really interesting product. Basically, a lot of people have downloaded. I made a free lo-fi piano, I think for FL and for Ableton. And this is one of those kind of instruments where it's very much dedicated to that sound. So we're going to get into it, listen to what it sounds like, and have some fun with it. Just make some music with it, give you my honest thoughts about it, and see what we think. So there's two versions of the instrument. One version is a felt where they apparently use like 4 layers of felt on I believe it's an upright piano, but I kind of forget, to be honest. So don't quote me on that. And they have a cool UI. So you have 3 different microphones, delay, reverb, a color, which I'm assuming is some kind of EQ. And then you have this cassette section. And we'll get into it, what it sounds like and everything. But I'm liking it so far. It sounds really nice. So we'll play some stuff through it right now. This is the felt. Has a really interesting natural sound to it. Like you can tell, not all the strings are perfectly pristinely in tune. Very mellow sound. But a lot of sustain, tons of sustain. And then if we go and listen to the natural one, which I have here, and I can even pull up my keyboard so you can all see what I'm playing a little bit. This right here. So this is the natural piano without the felt, I'm assuming. Really super mellow sound, very dark, which is kind of interesting to me. Like, the natural piano is very dark, and then the felt piano is it just rings out quite a lot. So they're very different piano sounds. Really interesting. That's just the default setting. So you can see here, I'm going to go back to the felt real quick, and we'll check out the features on it. So it starts off, you have, I'm assuming, a room mic, a ribbon mic, and SDC, I'm assuming, is a condenser mic. I'm not exactly sure or like what those things stand for, but they're just 3 different mic settings, I'm assuming. And we'll solo each one here now. Yeah, that sounds kind of like a condenser because it's kind of more open sounding than the LDC. So you can really kind of hear the hammers hitting the strings more. And then the ribbon sound, I'm assuming that's ribbon for RBN, but really nice sound, really cool. All right, so we can get into the effects now. So you have a delay. Wow, that's like super ghostly sounding. ambient too. It's got a super long tail. And it's just like one knob, so I'm assuming that's basically either like a mix knob. No, that's not a mix knob. So this is literally just adding like the amount of delay, but it won't obstruct the original signal. So it's basically like a parallel knob here. You can't see the two faders, but it's keeping your dry signal perfectly intact. So you can't wash it out with the delay. I'm assuming the reverb's kind of the same way. So maybe we'll turn these all the way up and just hear it go crazy. Wow. That's wild, man. Sounds really cool. It's got a lot of weight behind it, like in the low frequencies. It's really nice. Like I would make a track just with something like that, you know. I wouldn't even go crazy like trying to mess with it. But apparently you can. We're gonna get into some of the lo-fi effects here in a second. Maybe we'll throw on some drums. Yeah, super washed out. It sounds really nice. So yeah, then the color. So it's interesting because if you pull it left, it's kind of like cutting the highs. It's gonna be very mid-rangey, like around 500 hertz. And if you pull it all the way to the right, you're cutting the lows. So you can get like a more kind of transistor radio. I think with the effects, it kind of cleans it up really nicely too. You can play a little faster, you know. So now we have cassette. And the cassette it's subtle. If I pull it all the way up, you can hear the noise floor maybe. Then it's gone. So it changes the tone a little bit, but it's mostly adding noise. You can also make the signal mono. The crunch is also pretty subtle. Lo-fi. So we got some sample rate reduction there. And if you just go right on the edge here, you can get a little bit of that digital breakup, which is kind of nice. Kind of that degrading kind of sound. And if you want to just bit crush it, kind of, you know. It sounds nice when it's full on too. It's a nice tone. Usually that's very grating. Pretty cool. So yeah, it's got a nice sound to it. We could try make a track with some of this stuff too. Got some drums here. Let's kind of see what happens. Hey, what's going on, Zephyr? Yeah, I forgot to mention to you guys, we're actually streaming today on multiple platforms, so it's pretty cool. So I signed up with Restream, so if you're, normally use like Twitch, a lot of people use Twitch, and I even made it possible on Kick, Facebook, and Twitter. I try to do Instagram and TikTok, but right now it's super complicated, like getting that set up for some reason on those websites. But yeah, basically the stream right now is live on 5 different platforms, so it's pretty cool. Super psyched on it. So welcome anyone who's new to the stream too. I know we got some familiar faces jumping in saying hello today. It's always nice to hear from you guys. So yeah, this is already sounding really cool as a little beat. So a cool bit of music production tips, because I always like to throw them in. You can take, like, a lot of times when people get to this point in a track, they spend a lot of time looking for like a bass or that other instrument to start rounding out the arrangement, and the instrumentation. And I always say, like, you can, if you're feeling up to it, you can basically turn a piano into a bass, and certain pianos sound great when you kind of like bassify them. So what does that mean? Playing obviously lower notes on the keyboard or writing in lower notes on the piano roll. And you can see here in Ableton, you could do this in FL. Any stock plugins are fine. I've got the EQ8. So I'm basically just cutting all the mids out. And now you can hear how this sounds. So you're basically just hearing something that's very similar to kind of like a bass guitar almost, right? So it's really not far away. All it is EQ8, kind of doing this bandpass move right here, and drum bus, which is giving it some, saturation, kind of bringing everything together. If I add the compressor on drum bus, which is a huge level boost, you have something. Now, obviously, the resonance of the string on a piano is different than a bass guitar or an 808 or a synth bass or a Reese bass. So it will respond kind of differently in the track. But if you were just really quickly trying to make a bass out of really anything you got, even just the piano VST or piano contact instrument you got pulled up like today, this is all you need to do. And I even labeled this bass. So Ableton users out there, you could literally grab an EQ and a drum bus, mess around with the features, save this in your user folder, boom, you've got a bass out of really anything because you're just taking the lows and using those. So I can't even remember what I played chord-wise. So we'll take a look at what's going on chord-wise here. What did I play? C minor. Looks like a G minor inversion there. A flat, F minor. All right, cool. Just some vibey stuff. Let's see if I can play something without messing up. Do the bass. All right, cool. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Another tip for you guys on Ableton, make sure you have your quantize settings for end. So when you're doing your bass lines, you don't have to go in individually to each MIDI clip and fix the tails, right? So there we go. It's cool. This piano has a really interesting sound too when you bassify it. So I really like it. It sounds nice. Now, another cool trick that I like to do with lo-fi piano sounds and really anything you're working with is just experiment with how that instrument sounds layered with other things. And you can do this very easily. If you have an FL Studio, your pattern, you could just drag and drop it onto something else in the channel rack and boom, you're layering your sounds. So this would be like a pattern FL, right? In Ableton, we have the instrument rack. And a lot of you have probably seen I've done a couple of shorts about instrument racks and using them in kind of wacky ways. And you just get like really interesting sounds from it. So if I go over here to the instrument rack, we can go over and basically I'll just drag everything that's going on in here in there. So I'll go like this. And now this has its own lane. And then we'll go ahead and turn down some of those ambient effects. There we go. And let's see here. So now that's up there. And I might throw in, let's see, maybe like an Ableton instrument. Inspiration's a really cool pack. I actually did this pack a long time ago, but it has some really usable keyboard sounds on there. The Classic is one of them. It's an old sound I did back in 2020, March 2020. So yeah, this is like a really nice ambient electric piano. And then we kind of just mix them in. So if we're hearing vertically, just that nice mellow, natural felt. I'll give it a little bit of level boost here just so it doesn't get lost in the sauce. And then you have the classic, which is just one of my favorite, like, super usable presets. And as they combine, you get that uber warmth from the classic preset. So you can get this from the inspirations pack I have on the website. And I wonder, combining this with Verticali's parallel effects, how that would kind of go. So we'll kind of like make this like a really washed out, more low cut version of the sound, right? Oh yeah, that's really sweet. And then mix that with the kind of cool, crisp, classic Ableton stuff. Wow. So yeah, instrument rack, just combining things together, using different instruments for their own, unique characteristics. It's really nice. It really works out really well. And might as well just try it with what I kind of played in from earlier. Just fix that because I'm OCD. Hate those little tags on the end. And we have this. I might just compress that sound a little bit to give it a little more sustain. You can see how pokey it is there. We can also just make that bass mono, which comes in handy. Kind of centerify it. You can do that in the original plugin as well. It has a mono button there, which is really smart they included that. right, nice. I think we got kind of a cool vibe going on here now. So we could try adding a lead to this as well. That might be nice. So yeah, let's try something like that. I might take this same idea. So take the instrument rack, or even like taking verticality and then just adding on effects after it to kind of make it, you know, different from a piano sound, maybe something a little more aggressive. That could be kind of cool. So we'll go ahead and drop this into here. Let's freeze and flatten these. All right, cool. So they also made presets for verticality. So we'll check out some of those. We'll try. Let's try Crush Master. It's pretty cool. Maybe we'll run it through some of the kind of echo stuff I always find is really fun for making things super heavy sounding. Run that parallel. Pretty awesome. And then maybe we'll try to kind of wash that out a little bit with some reverb. So you notice drum bus does a lot for sort of adding heat to something after you've sound designed it, especially if you try to wash things out a little more. Now there's like tons of dimension around that sound, right? So that really comes in handy, I feel like. So now you have something very kind of distinct. And this, you know, does a great job of a starting point for that, for sure. So we kind of play through here. Let's just try whatever. Yeah, it's a pretty fun. It's a pretty fun instrument to mess around with. You know, you can kind of see I'm using the Ableton modules, just sort of stacking things, right? So taking a kind of piano, lo-fi piano sound, and then throwing on some effects, and then a little bit of EQ and distortion, but also like here, I'll unfreeze this too, so you can kind of see what I mean. Um, I'm running like a parallel delay, which gives it like a little more rhythmic kind of sound, and then kind of smashing it with a lot of reverb. And then you have these EQs here, which I'm kind of using in a very similar way, just sort of nudging them around. So I can kind of, when I go into the distortion, because it's going to really distort that with the effects, I can manage for some things like some of those kind of brittle, like high frequencies that are kind of annoying. So all that kind of plays a role in sort of sound designing a lead from a piano and just making it very kind of different sounding than kind of what our ear hears as a normal piano, right? So that's kind of the idea. And it's a lot of fun, though. I'm having a lot of fun with Verticale. It's a beautiful plugin, a beautiful contact instrument. So yeah, if you want to check this out, feel free to. Verticale is available now. It is something that you need the latest version of Contact to use. So I'd highly recommend being on like Contact 7 to use it. And it's really nice though. It's fun to make music with, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And it's got obviously really nice UI features that make it very intuitive to use, and it's really nice. And they were nice enough to send me a copy of it, so it's been fun playing around with it today. And it's nice to get back to streaming too. I haven't streamed in a while, so hope everyone's doing well, is having a great summer. And yeah, I'll probably just sign it off from right here. We'll take another listen to this track, and yeah. It's cool too. Another thing you'll notice is I kind of start my tracks. If I'm gonna like work from a loop, I'm always like towards the right of the screen. So I'm never like starting here. So I can start like pulling things back and like trying to figure out like an arrangement, that kind of idea. You can also see a little bit of the riff. Sort of split triads, kind of spread out voicings, right? So even while the track is playing, we can kind of start to figure out what's going to happen. Try to figure out our intro. I'll take these tails and move them over here. So another thing I'd like to create is like try to really alter the sound of the keys and kind of do it in a way that's a little more experimental. So what I might do is take a piano, you could do this to really any instrument, and kind of layering it through like a guitar amp or something like that can kind of give you a very different sound. So you can hear how it sounds like I'm playing like an electric guitar, but it's literally just the piano through an amp. This is kind of funny, right? And then the same idea is what we did with the piano. So in this track, I might kind of like push it out a little bit and make it just very sort of far away, kind of. So we'll try something like that. And we'll throw a little bit of EQ on this. Just to kind of manage for those upper frequencies that can get a little bit too brittle. Just kind of right around there. I was between like 4 and 6K. But you might also even want to like put on the high cut. Just so you can push it even like further away, right? And you get a really interesting effect when you start putting different instruments through heavy guitar amp emulations, because it'll have the same distortion, but they'll play a little bit differently. It's kind of like what we talked about with making the piano a bass guitar, or trying to, you know. You put the piano or whatever instrument into a guitar amp, it's going to have the distortion of a guitar. It's going to feel like you're hearing an electric guitar, but it's an instrument that's going through that thing, that it doesn't have the same physical characteristics of someone plucking a steel string, right? So it's going to react to the amp a little differently, and it can have an otherworldly bit of detail to it. And definitely in like, as we loop around to this section, I'll throw that in to give something for the ear, you know. So I kind of have a melody here with a nice pickup, and that kind of works, right? So we'll superimpose it. Maybe the drums will drop out here. That melody kind of fall away. Let this thing sort of continue. Lose the bass. We kind of have our grand finale, right? Try an interesting little cut here at the end. Ooh, I kind of like that idea actually for when we're coming back in. We'll do the same thing here. That kind of subverts your expectations a little bit. Well, actually, it wouldn't make sense there, right? So we need to get rid of this. And then we'll be able to do that. So just kind of putting together a little arrangement. Then everything comes back in. I'll call this Buzzy Lead, because that's what it's doing. Lo-fi drums are from the Night Flights sample pack on Beach Road store. So if you're looking for some usable loops to kind of throw in your tracks, you can check that out there. So this is nice. Now I kind of want to keep going when it comes back in, but that's good though. The track's at 2 minutes, so let's try and add some details now. Cool, so I can kind of hear a couple of things that I want to do with this. We'll just freeze and flatten this thing. Like I kind of want to add like a shaker, which is a nice way to kind of keep things more interesting slightly, even in like a lo-fi track where you're trying to be, gentle with the sound. But one thing I've noticed is like a lot of times people struggle with finding a shaker track that is kind of that works in their song or that sounds natural or kind of just fits properly in what you're trying to do. And it goes back to like in music production, if you can record something using your mic, you're probably better off, right? So yeah, I mean that's definitely just a reality. But the creativity of using plugins and the digital world is something I obviously really like. So what I try to do here is if I have a drum beat that has a hi-hat or even a snare in it, basically this thing is totally usable. So I'll basically go ahead and duplicate it because I had some EQ changes on there that I was managing for, but I'm basically just going to take this and, take another EQ and basically take out the kick, which is a big part of the sound of that loop, right? And now I'm going to go ahead and solo this so we can hear what I'm talking about. You'll notice you've got this sort of light sounding mid-range snare. Almost sounds like a rim shot at this point, which is cool. So now what we can do is create more transients out of a very simple transient sound. Sorry about that. So what I can do here now is go and let's see here. Maybe we'll grab something like the Echo Boy is good for that. And let's see here. Go for a ping pong delay. And now that I just have more transients, it's kind of turning into, it's not there yet, but it's sort of like a shaker and a bongo at the same time, right? So that snare kind of feels a little more like a bongo now. I think just because it's just playing differently, right, in our ears. So now I'm going to go ahead and really heavily cut things out, basically. So go over here and go something like this. So I'm like really changing the tone of it a lot. And now if I send this thing through a distortion, I'm going to get a very different sound. So before we used like an amp distortion, for instance, you could certainly use that. This one in particular has a nice, this is kind of one of my, now, you know, it's going to sound pretty grating on that current one. But there's a couple on here that are really nice. This is a beautiful amp emulation here, which is very lo-fi sounding. Still a little bit, a little more brittle, and that's why I go for something called, if I can find it, I believe this one is called the Raven, I think. Raven Type D. And this is very lo-fi sounding now. So it's kind of all of a sudden went from having a very pristine forward sound. It's also become kind of monofied. I think, yeah, routing is mono. So we go back to stereo here. So we get that nice stereo bouncing back and forth, ping pong kind of thing, right? But this is kind of a fun way to enhance and create almost like a shaker, you know? And then probably one last thing I'll do is I'll try to kind of crush it a little bit and you know, do something. Maybe we'll grab just a compressor. Right, so now we've kind of created kind of like a shaker. I mean, the snare's in there, so it's going to sound a little more like a percussive kind of like a perk loop, but it's got definitely now an interesting syncopated kind of thing going on. And then once you hear it with the drums, you'll have something that's kind of interesting going on here. So it's kind of fun. Put it into the track as you're going into it. Maybe even add it during the when the lead comes in, and you get a very interesting kind of moment in the song about, you know, just under a minute in. It's a little bit forward in the mix. So I'll push it back a little bit. And we'll just darken it slightly as well. Like, I like what's going on there at like 1200 hertz. You'll notice I'm heavy-handed with the EQ because I'm sculpting. I'm not like looking at it like I'm mixing, you know. I'm trying to build in the sound, right? Get rid of that last little bit there. Just fixing the fade out there. But yeah, that kind of adds on a little bit more detail, right? Another thing too that I like to do is the transitionary effects. So basically risers and impacts. You think of, the wave rising and the wave crashing, in the ocean. All that dynamic energy that you can create underneath a track. Think movie trailers, that's a big thing. We've done some tutorials on the channel about this stuff as well. But also just the basic idea that you can build this stuff. So what I'm going to do here now is we'll grab the piano. I'm just going to freeze and flatten my lead sound. It's a pretty simple way to do it. So you can take really anything and just reverse the sample, like any DAW that you use. This is Ableton you're looking at, but we talk about FL and Logic and stuff like that. We've got plenty of people in the chat that come through the channel that they use their own stuff that's not Ableton. It really doesn't matter. Any DAW that you use, you want to learn how to reverse all of your sounds, because you'll probably find a use for them building your track. Really simple example here. I know my song is in C minor or E flat major. I'm going to go ahead and play a note. A nice mid-rangey note might work. We'll play it in. I'm going to hit the key and let it ring out all the way through. So I'm holding down the key. I want all the decay, especially on the bottom. The very bottom of the dynamic range. I'm going to flatten that into audio. So now I have a piece of audio that I can use. And this is why I always love promoting the one-shots that I do. Beach Roads does a lot of one-shot packs. We actually give away a lot of them for free as just bonuses. We've got a Creative Keyboards one-shot pack that's included a lot of the bundle packs that we do. That's why I love them, because you could throw this into a sampler on FL Studio and have a totally unique piano instrument, or you could actually just reverse the sound and have, something that you can build a transition effect out of. So we'll reverse it, and immediately you'll notice it has a very different use listening to it this way. It kind of sounds like the HBO intro or something. But that's basically what's going on, right? So that sound might still sound kind of basic. But going into, let's say, the lead of the song, it might serve a purpose that's really useful for building anticipation. And in there, it's kind of quick. It sneaks up on you, kind of like a mosquito coming into your ear. So, what we could do there is manage for that. So I might go ahead and bring it back to forward and put a bit of reverb on it. So now it's going to be a lot more further away sounding. And if we freeze and flatten that audio into something, the transient changes a little bit. It loses some of its ramping, and it's still ramping up. It's getting louder and louder, but it's kind of more murky looking in the waveform. Literally too, you'll hear it that way. So we reverse it back. And you can, of course, experiment with pitch and all that other stuff too. So But now you have a nice little ramp. And what I do, if I want to take it a step further, I want it to ramp up, but I don't want it to just kind of disappear like it's in a vacuum. What I'm going to do now is take the parallel effects and actually put a delay on that ramp. So a lot of times you don't really see people doing this because you have to kind of know what you want to do with the plugin. What I do is I have it basically be fully 100% wet, which is what you typically do with parallel effects. But what I'm going to do is maybe automate when it happens. So as the sound of my transition, my reverse sound ramps up, you're going to start to hear it in this plugin. But what I'm going to do is automate the volume of it. So it's going to come in after the impact of the new instruments. And this gives me a ton of control too, because I can also sound design that delay itself. You know, once you start to kind of like use automation and use it not just for like messing around, but for really specific reasons, it definitely gives you a lot of control over the quality of your music, especially for vocal chains, by the way. So what I'm going to do now, we'll solo it here. And what I'm listening for is after the peak or the apex of this reverse sound. It's nice. A dotted eighth note thing might sound cool. Let's listen to it in context with the track. It's cool. It kind of pulls the ear away a little bit. So I might go for something that's just straight eighth notes. And let's try quarter notes. I like that. That sounds really nice. So now we can go in. I'm going to hit caps lock A or capital A. That triggers automation lanes in Ableton. You can obviously do this a different way in FL Studio. But basically, the volume on my parallel will be off. And then right at the apex, it will come up to, you know, wherever I want it. That's nice. And then another thing I can do now is actually filter that sound so it doesn't sound exactly like the original one. So on modern mode, it's going to be kind of, you know, it's going to sound like a pristine digital delay pedal would. But on vintage digital, it's going to degrade it a little more. We can even turn the feedback up a little bit. And I'm going to go for high pass on this. Okay, cool. Just adding a little more detail after that reverse. All right, cool. Then we'll just freeze and flatten this thing. And you can see those little things that we add on later on using those parallel delay that parallel delay trick. All right, so now we have kind of a reverse sound, which we can bring in also at different points in the track, obviously. So maybe here we'll use it at the ending. We could also use it when we come back in after the break. I'd actually like it if we heard it again right here. All right, so we've got some cool things in this track now. Let's take a final listen and yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to send it off there, everyone. Thanks for everyone stopping by the stream. Hope you enjoyed it. It was really fun. We got to mess around with this piano library. Sounded really great. So yeah, I'll see you all in the next stream, next video, next short, whatever I got finished. It's coming out. But yeah, thanks again, everyone. And just another reminder, we're running the stream now on different platforms as well. So if you're a big Twitch user, Kick, Twitter, Facebook, the stream is now simulcast, I guess you call it, simulcast on those platforms as well. So, but yeah, fun little afternoon making music. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your weekend. And I will see you all soon again. All right, everyone, take care. Bye-bye.